Thank you for sharing those words with us. May God add a blessing to the reading, hearing, and our understanding of God's word. Let us pray. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Why is it that when we're traveling down the road going somewhere, no matter how well we plan, quite often we'll run into a sign as we come around the bend that says, "Roadwork ahead"? I'm sure we've all had those experiences. You turn the corner, there's one of those signs, "Men at Work," and we're going down and we see the roadwork personnel holding a little sign that says, "Slow." And what do you do as you approach that? You slow down, but what are you hopeful for? What are you hopeful for? That sign doesn't suddenly turn and say, "Stop," right? I bet you some of you might even hug the person close, not to leave enough of a gap that they might say, "Oh, here's an opportunity," right? We've all been there. We know what that's like. It can be frustrating. And I know that we all have those stories. Just a few years ago, we were taking Hannah, Ted and I were taking Hannah back to the airport. It was the ungodly hour of 4 a.m. and going back into Boston to drop her off at the airport, and the exit we planned to get off was closed. And there was a little detour sign, and we took and followed that detour and kind of went around, wind around a few places where there'd be a detour sign, and we followed that arrow, and then all of a sudden, there are no detour signs left. Yeah. I see heads nodding. You've been there, you've done that.
In the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, yeah. And it's hard, and so, we're all here because we've made it through that. And I will say that on that occasion, and maybe it had something to do with Ted's knowledge of Boston, I may not, I'd still might be driving around there to this day. But we were able to get her off to the airport and to her flight on time, and we made it through. But that was surely not the way we had things figured out. Frustration and will we get to the airport on time, that worry ensued the whole way. And ultimately, as I said, we did get there. And we made it, even though we had several U-turns along the way and winding down different roads. But we made it. And truthfully, if we admit it, while it's inconvenient for us to go around these different roadblocks in the way, we're glad they're taking care of our roads and not challenging our suspension systems on our cars. We don't have to swerve around potholes. Who doesn't love a drive on a newly paved road? Yeah. When I was a kid, I remember nearby us, they paved the road, and I wasn't driving yet, but boy, my bicycle just could whirl around on that new pavement, and it was so much fun. Well, some of this sounds a little bit like life when we talk about roads, bumps in the road, twists and turns that detour us when we least expect it. Events change our plans, right? Things we hadn't counted on slow us down or reroute us another way. These changes, these unexpected circumstances challenge us, and they challenge the roadway of our hearts, our faith, our strength, our hope. On some level, they are unavoidable, no matter how well we plan. As it is said, life happens. And we might suggest life as an acronym for living in flexibility expected. Because a full life, a satisfied and content life requires us to learn to adjust to the ebb and flow that naturally washes through the veins of our existence, through our journey. It defines life and how we face the steps ahead. and comes to terms with the footprints that we have left behind on other occasions. It has everything to do with where we are in here, deep within. Well, both passages that we heard Ginny share with us this morning from Isaiah and Matthew both talk about roots, the strength of every plant and tree, roots that give stability when turbulence comes, roots that bring up nourishment from the soil of growth, roots that determine the overall health of the plant. In Isaiah, the reference is of new growth and promise. Roots planted in good, life-giving soil and faith. In Matthew, it is about these roots that are planted where what nurtures the tree is absent, so that nothing fruitful grows. And the demise of the tree is inevitable, for the health of the plant is determined by what flows through the roots, for the veins, the phloem and the xylem. You know, in New England, the poignancy of Christmastide as the shortened days and darkness settle around us, sets us up to turn within and to ponder our roots, the roots of our faith. What gives us hope? Where do we find peace and love and joy in our personal lives? And while we may wish to turn away from the darkness, because really, let's face it, we don't always like the darkness, but it is in the darkness that we actually catch a glimpse of the signs of light, and we know the light more profoundly. I believe it was Corrie ten Boom, Holocaust survivor, who was attributed as saying, when you're riding a train and it goes through a tunnel, that is not the time to jump off. Rather, in the darkness is where we begin to find our true selves, the essence of life that pulses through our veins, our roots reaching to draw up renewed energy, the life force that moves us forward, that gives us strength, spirit, faith. John the Baptist in our passage talks about being a time of repentance. The darkness associated with that can be overwhelming when we choose to take a deep look at our lives and recognize those things that we are not particularly proud of. But I agree with the author Dave Luce, who says repentance isn't about feeling bad or saying I'm sorry. Rather, it's about a reorientation, a change of perspective and direction, a commitment to turn and live differently. It is a deep, down-in-the-root decision to do things in a new way, in a different way, and thus draw forward and upward goodness that feeds our souls, nourishes our hearts, and fills our lives with promise. Perhaps the thought of becoming keenly aware of darkness seems to fall in contrast with this Christmas tide of celebration, the joy and cheer, the peace and love, the hope, the promise. But in actuality, it is in the darkness that we realize our deepest appreciation and need for the life-giving source of love that surpasses all understanding that comes to us in the birth of Jesus on Christmas Day. This journey through Advent that we take every year, with familiar readings and candle lighting and carols, in this New England cold, dark stillness, draws us to become profoundly aware of just how significant that message is for our lives. The hope, the peace, the love, the joy that is ours to draw up through the roots of our lives, spread through our very beings and defined how we live our lives every single day. Many of us were here to celebrate last evening as we had a concert here, and then from here went to the Common where we sung carols around the tree, and then from there to the library where we celebrated with family and friends, with food and more music and storytelling, and of course, dear old Santa Claus came as well. In spite of the bitter cold on a winter night, the warmth of community filled the air and rooted us in a deeper sense of joy and a wonderful sense of partnership that we share as a community as we travel in partnership together through life. And as we were walking over from the church to the Common, I was walking with Al, and he said to me, Isn't there just something so special about this place? Yeah. And I said, yes, there is. Other towns and villages may feel similar feelings about their place, but this is our community. And it is our sense of joy, and it is a miracle to be in this place and share with one another so deeply. Ted and I, earlier this week, went down to Connecticut, had some business we had to take care of down there, and of course had to go by and visit our grandchildren and stay with them for 2 days. And one of our joys was that our oldest granddaughter, Nora, was in a play. She was doing we couldn't see the play because it's this weekend, but we got to see the dress rehearsal, which was just about as good. And it's Miracle on 34th Street that they're doing. And if you recall the story, it is about the challenge between myth and belief. And there's a battle that ensues over the identity of a man who claims to be Kris Kringle. There were those whose sense of logic denied the actual existence of Santa Claus, and those whose hearts believed in spite of all the inexplicable mystery of it all. And in the end, it is the coming together of the head and the heart that embrace the essence of Kris Kringle and the warmth and goodness that flows from him. Believing without fully understanding. Believing without fully understanding. I believe that's part of what draws us together, to be here. We face some road work ahead in our faith journey this Christmas time as we take notice of where we have been and where we are going. The prophet Isaiah speaks of peace that comes from the establishment of roots anchored in the rich soil of faith. In our commercial world, we come to the holidays with a suggestion that our gifts will actually bring joy and peace to others. But deeply rooted joy and peace don't come from what we give, but from who we are. May we ask ourselves in this season where we are planted. As your roots spread through the soil of your life, what are they drawing up that feeds your soul? That gives you purpose, that gives you meaning. This season is magical. And yes, Al, this village is magical, and with it all the charm of giving and sharing, compassion and kindness that flow as soon as the Thanksgiving tables are cleared, right up through Christmas Day, and maybe sometimes to New Year's Day. But the magic, the mystery, should we choose to believe it is real, need not end when all the holiday wrappings are put away, but find it rooted as deeply as the tree that we sung around on the Common, reaching out and building up strength, building up hope and faith that sustains us throughout the year.